anything just more stand out just upon reviewing film and kind of going over what was missing last night?
A lot of things were missing, really. I mean, we didn't look at all like ourselves. Our game plan discipline was really poor. I thought just kind of our resiliency was poor. Our physicality was also poor. So there's a lot of things that that really stood out.
Nikhil and Dante have been such big contributors offensively for you. They struggled these playoffs. How can you get them going a little bit, or what would it?
I mean, they got to make some open shots. I mean, both of them had some open shots. They got to make them. They just got to take a breath and knock them down. It starts there. So.
How much of that do you think was?
Excuse me.
No worries. It was rest versus rust. Like, do you think because they were playing every other day, they were kind of already in that?
Yeah, I can't speak to the mindset they were in. I could only imagine. But for us, certainly, super rusty. Just way off the pace in every facet. So I don't know if it was a long layoff or it was the mindset. Physically we should have been, there and ready. But it didn't look like we were there and ready physically even. So.
Chris, the Warriors announced Steph will be out at least a week. How does that affect your preparation here?
Well, obviously, game. We can make some game plan adjustments accordingly. And I'm not going to tell you what those are going to be anyway. So.
We've talked a lot about this team sometimes has trouble getting up for shorthanded opponents and things like that. If you notice a common theme that you're on guard for coming into a situation like this where the team sees Steph isn't there, they might relax. Human nature might relax a little bit. What do you on guard against in that sense?
Well, I mean, listen. I think at this point in the season, if those things have to be highlighted to the team, then you got more serious problems than you might believe. But I think we got to focus on first of all some controllables that we can do better, regardless if Steph is playing or not. We got beat in the possession game, and that had nothing to do with whether Steph was on the floor or not. So we were awful in transition. That had nothing to do with whether Steph was on the floor or not. So there's a lot of things that we need to improve upon to even out this series.
Chris, you're pretty candid about Ant last night. I mean, how do you expect him to bounce back, and how much do you think?
I mean, Ant is, Ant's he always bounces back, and he holds himself accountable, and we had a film session today, and a lot of accountability on that for everybody, not just him. So, but I answered those questions last night. So.
How are they different when Steph's not there, whether out of a game or not around for an entire?
I mean, they play a lot more through Jimmy Butler. Does a lot. The ball's in his hands a bit more. Their style stays relatively similar. Obviously Hield did a good job of filling in a lot of the same ways that Steph would. Then of course they can put a little bit more defense on the floor as well too. So.
Chris, how do you evaluate how you did defensively? I mean, they under 100, 39%, but maybe a few possessions where
I think your margins for error at this point in time are not big at all. So little things that you do wrong or don't do well enough, you pay for. At this point in the playoffs, like there are no flawed teams. There might be teams that are good or bad at certain things or have holes, in their roster or their style of play. But they're not teams that are going to beat themselves largely. So, you got to be really good on all the little pieces of the game plan, and we weren't very good there last night. So.
With transition decision making, is it like a group recognition?
We haven't been very good at it all season, to be quite honest with you. So what you saw last night was just a highlighted version of that. But we need to be better. At times we have shown growth there, but spacing in transition was poor. Decision making was poor. I thought we had chances to take on guys at the rim, and we didn't. I thought we had chances to find open guys in transition ahead of us, and we didn't. We dribbled into a crowd. We turned it over a bunch. I think we had 4 or 5 turnovers in transition. So,
Chris, when you struggle at that all season, is that something that is fixable within a series?
Well, I mean, you're not all of a sudden going to become the world's best transition, but my God, you can't just throw the ball to the other team. So.
What do you feel the thinking is in this modern NBA? If the threes aren't going, go to something else, force the action inside, or if the threes aren't going, keep shooting them, regress into the main?
I mean, is that a general question or specific to what you saw last night?
I would say general, but also, I mean, after you viewed the tape, if you were pleased.
I mean, I think in general, good shots are good shots. I mean, obviously, there's different ways to play, and I can't speak for other teams, but for us, I didn't think we were too reliant on the three last night. I mean, our finishing around the basket, we got there at a good rate, was equally as poor. So, we're not just a threes for threes' sake type team. So I didn't think that for us was the case. We've shown the ability to be able to go to the hoop. In fact, we want to go to the basket first and foremost. So we just happen to take more threes this year than we have done in years past. I do think sometimes when guys are struggling with their three in the modern game that they get a little bit more stubborn about getting it off to just, to prove that they can get themselves going. But the best threes are the ones that your teammates generate for you, not the ones you generate for yourself. So
They're rebounding. What makes them, despite their lack of size, so effective at rebounding when they?
Which side of the ball?
Both.
Oh, well, on defensive rebounding, they do a lot of fouling, holding, shoving, pushing, and tackling Rudy. That's clear. We sent a bunch of those clips into the league. In fact, I'm not sure I know another player in the league with Rudy's pedigree that is allowed to be physically beaten on the way he is. And so, we gotta address that one way or another. But they're super active. They fly around. They got a high level of compete. And they're smalls. Peyton Jr. has the highest crash rate for any small in the league, so he's always there. You want to be a good offensive rebounder, you got to go all the time. It's not a sometimes thing. You got to go. The more you go, the more you're going to get.
Chris, Steve Kerr talks often about how valuable it is that Steph can take criticism in film review, and it sounds like it's similar with you.
Yeah.
How important is that when the best player is receptive to that kind of?
I say this all the time, you're only going to be as good as your ability or your willingness or your courage to coach your best players. If you don't have that, you're not going to have a lot of accountability in that film room, and that's where it starts. So we're lucky. Our guys will take it. And, if you want the ball in your hands or you want to be in the center of the action or you want to be playing all the minutes, then you're going to be on that film because, I'd be lying to myself and everyone else if that wasn't the case. So.
Acknowledging the letter of the law when it comes to fouls, if you see it's being officiated a certain way, is there latitude there just to be like, well, Rudy, you're the biggest guy out there then, and you should start pushing guys around?
Yeah, he did push. I mean, there was a play last night where Podziemski clearly grabbed him, and then he sheds Podziemski, and then he gets the foul. So, yeah, I mean, we'll certainly try to take justice into our own hands whenever we can. I think it's the nature of physical sport. But by the same token, my God, you should see some of these clips. They're just they look like pulling guards and linemen out there just taking shots at Rudy. So.
Thanks, Coach. Thanks,
Yep, thanks, guys.
Thank you.